Hello everyone and welcome back to another fun-filled session for higher maths. We are nearing the end of the first topic, the straight line. Today we're going to look at a new line which is called a median of a triangle, or the medians of a triangle, as you can see from the heading. Now, last lesson we looked at the altitude of a triangle. The median of a triangle has some similarities, but it's not exactly the same. Okay, first similarity, a triangle has three medians. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw in those three medians. I can draw in the median from C. I can draw in the median from B. And I can draw in the median from A. Now, the median of a triangle goes from one of the corners to the middle of the opposite side. I'll say that again because it's really important. The median of a triangle goes from one of the corners to the middle of the opposite side. So if you're thinking about how we're going to work out the equation of this new line that I've drawn in, for the equation we need the gradient, we need a point, and then we're good to go. How are we going to get the gradient? How am I going to get the gradient of that line? Remember what I just said. It goes to the middle of the opposite side. Now, we've already talked about how you find the midpoint of a side. We're going to have to use that. To get the equation of a median, you need to find the midpoint of the opposite side, and then you will have 2 points. So you do your gradient, just using your gradient formula, you choose either one of the points, and then we're good to go. So we're going to find the midpoint of the opposite side, and that's going to help me get my gradient. Let's do an example with some numbers involved. So let's say we have a triangle where A is the point 3 minus 7, B is the point 8, 1, and C is the point 5 minus 3. And I want the equation of the median from B. A little picture just with the first one, just to show you what's actually going to happen. So 3 minus 7, 8, 1, 5 minus 3, something like so. Right, so I want the equation of the median from B. So the median from B goes from B to the middle of the opposite side. Like so. I want the equation of that new line that I've just added. It's going to the middle of the opposite side. I need the midpoint of this side. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to find the midpoint of this side. So I want the midpoint of AC. Now if you cast your mind back to when we did midpoint, you add together the x coordinates and half it, you add together the y coordinates and half it. So that's what we'll do. So I'll add together the x coordinates, 3 add 5, half it. I'll add together the y coordinates and half it like so. Okay, so the midpoint of AC, 3 add 5 is 8, divided by 2 will give me 4. Minus 3 add minus 7 will be minus 10, divided by 2 will be minus 5. So the midpoint is 4 minus 5. So now I want the equation of this line here. I know that point and I know this point. So it should be quite easy from now on in. So I'm going to go for my gradient. Okay, so remember I'm using this point here, point B, equation of the median from B, and I'm going to use the midpoint. That's what I need to find the gradient of. So I'm going to do -5 take away 1, 4 take away 8. Remember, for the gradient I'm just using y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So -5 take away 1 will give me -6, 4 take away 8 will give me -4, 6 over 4 will become 3 over 2, and the negatives will cancel. So my gradient is going to be 3 over 2. For my point, I know 2 points that lie on this line, so I just need to choose one of them. I'll go with the one that looks the easiest, and for this it's B, which is 8, 1. And then I'm going to go for my equation. Y minus B equals x bracket x minus a. Fill in my information. Y take away 1 equals 3/2 x minus 8. Multiply through by 2 to remove the fraction. 2y minus 2 will equal, the 2's will cancel, leaving the 3. Multiply at the bracket. Add 2 to both sides. Final answer, can I squeeze it in? 2y will equal 3x minus 22. Just. So, to work out the median, you need the middle of the opposite side. You need the midpoint of the opposite side. So I wanted the median from B, so I found the midpoint of AC. To do that, add together the x coordinates and half it, add together the y coordinates and half it. Once you've got that, you then have 2 points that lie on the line, so you will use the normal gradient formula to work out the gradient, choose either point, and then we are good to go and do the equation. I'll do another example. This time I'm going to tell you that we have D, which is 4, 5. We have E, 8 minus 1, and we have F, which is 2, 0. And I want the equation of the median from F. I'm not going to draw this one out. You can if you want. So the first thing first, I want the midpoint of the opposite side. So if the median is coming from F, the opposite side will be DE. So I want the midpoint of DE. I'm going to add together the x coordinates and half it. I'm going to add together the y coordinates and half it. That will give me 4 add 8 is 12, divided by 2 is 6, 5 add minus 1 is 4, divided by 2 is 2. So I want the equation of the line which connects F and this midpoint. So that means I'm going to go for my gradient. Let's write it out properly. The points that I'm using, remember, I'm using F and I'm using 6, 2. So for my gradient, it's going to be 2 take away 0, 6 take away 2, which will leave me with 2 and 4, and obviously that simplifies to be a half. My point, I can use either point. I have 2, 0 and I have 6, 2. I'm going to go with 6, 2. My equation is going to be y minus b equals m bracket x minus a. Fill in my information. Y take away 2 will equal a half x minus 6. I'm going to multiply by 2 to remove the fraction. Remember, here the 2's will cancel, leaving the 1. The 1's outside the bracket. If we multiply the bracket by 1, it stays the same, so I can just write x minus 6. And now I will add 4 to both sides. So 2y will equal x take away 2. Another example. Let's say this time I'm going to have the points Q 1 minus 7, T minus 4, 7, and W minus 2, 3. This time I want the equation of the median from T. So same as before, First thing I need is the midpoint of the opposite side. So if the median is coming from T, the opposite side will be QW. So I want the midpoint of QW. So add together the X coordinates and half it. Add together the Y coordinates and half it. 1 add minus 2 would give me minus 1. Minus 1 halved. That's going to give me minus a half. I'm not going to write it as a decimal. I'm going to keep it as its fraction. Over here, minus 7 add 3 will give me minus 4. Half of that will be minus 2. So now I have everything I need. I have point T, which is where the median is coming from. And I have my midpoint. So I want the gradient of that line there. So for my gradient, I'm going to go m equals minus 2 take away 7, minus a half take away 4, minus a half take away negative 4, minus 2 take away 7 will be minus 9, minus a half take away negative 4 is minus a half add 4, or 4 take away a half, which is 3.5, which is 7 over 2. Hope you should notice what I did there. So I've got 3.5, but I'm writing it as a top heavy fraction, which is 7 over 2. Now I am dividing minus 9 by 7 over 2. I can show you the long way of doing it at the side. I can also show you the fast way. If you divide a whole number by a fraction, the bottom number bounces up to the top and multiplies the top number. That will leave me 2 times minus 9 minus 18 over 7. The long way of showing you this, okay, I'll come over here, minus 9 divided by 7 over 2, that is minus 9 over 1 if we want to write it as a fraction. Remember, dividing fractions, we change the times, we turn the last one upside down, and then we multiply. So you can see I've got the same answer. So my gradient is minus 18 over 7. My point, I've got 2 points. I can either go with T or I can go with the midpoint. I'll definitely go with T because I can avoid this fraction. So that's going to be minus 4, 7, A and B. And then for my equation, see if I can just squeeze it out the side here. It's going to be y take away b equals m x take away a, so x take away minus 4, so x add 4. I'm going to multiply this through by 7 to remove the fraction. It's unusual we've got such a large number here, but that's just fine, it doesn't really matter, we just deal with the numbers that we've got. 7y take away 49 will equal minus 18x, multiply at the bracket, minus 18 multiplied by 4 is going to give me 72, minus 72. I'll add 49 to both sides, and that will give me minus 23. Okay, so for the median, you want the midpoint of the opposite side. You then want to do the gradient using the 2 points that you've got, and then you're into your equation. The only thing to watch out for is if we ask the question in a slightly different way. So I'll do that. In triangle QER, where Q is, oh, camera's down, 1 minus 7, T is, E is 9, 0, and R is 5, 2. Find the equation of the median that passes through the midpoint of ER. Okay, so I have changed the wording of the question. I want to find the equation of the median that passes through the midpoint of ER. The difference in the wording is that before I told you where the midpoint was coming from. So find the midpoint from F, find the midpoint from A. I told you where it was coming from, now I'm not. Now I'm telling you where it's going. So the first thing you've got to do is try and work out where it's coming from. If it's the midpoint of ER, then it must be coming from Q. That's another way of asking you for the median from Q. How we do it is still the same. I want the midpoint of the opposite side. So it's already telling me it's passing me through the midpoint of ER. So I want the midpoint of ER. So I'm going to add together the x's in half, add together the y's in half. So 9 add 5, halved, 0 add 2, halved. That's going to give me 14 over 2, which is 7, 2 over 2, which is 1. So the midpoint of ER is 7 over 1. So I've got my midpoint, I'm using that, and I also know that it's coming from Q, worked out from the language of the question. So those are the points that I'm going to use for my gradient. So gradient formula, fill in the information, 1 take away negative 7, 7 take away 1, that's going to give me 8 over 6, which will give me, for my gradient, simplified down, 4/3, 4 over 3. Point, well I've got 2 points, I'm going to go with the midpoint, 7, 1, and then equation, fill in your information, y take away 1 will equal 4/3, x take away 7. I'm going to multiply by 3 to remove the fraction. 3y minus 3 equals the 3's will cancel, leaving the 4 on top. I'm going to multiply my bracket. I'm going to add 3 to both sides. So my final answer for this one, for the median, is 3y equals 4x minus 25. So to get the median of a triangle, they will tell you where it's coming from, or in this case they told you where it's going to. The steps for the median are nearly always the same. You want the midpoint of the opposite side. You will then use that point and the point that you've already got where it's coming from to get the gradient. Choose either point into your equation and off you go. Right, time for you to do some work. First and foremost, question 1. Find the equation of the median from A for a triangle with vertices A11, B76 and C minus 2 minus 4. Question 2. Changing the question up a little bit. Triangle DEF has vertices D minus 1, 5, E 3, 9, F 12 minus 3. Find the equation of the median which passes through the midpoint of DE. And finally, question 3, find the equations of all 3 medians of the triangle with vertices A35, B minus 1, 3 and C7, 11. Yes, you need to find all 3 medians. So I want the median from A, the median from B and the median from C. Hit pause, do your work. Okay, question number 1. Median from A, so I want the midpoint of the opposite side, so I want the midpoint of BC. Add together the x coordinates and half it. Add together the y coordinates and half it. That will give me 7 add minus 2 is 5, so it's going to give me 5 over 2. We have a fraction. 6 add minus 4 will give me 6 take away 4, which is 2 over 2, which will give me 1. So I'm going to use the midpoint, and I'm also going to use the median from A, so I'm using A as my 2 points for my gradient. Let's see if you've been able to cope with this fraction. 5 halves, which is 2.5. So the gradient is going to be 1 take away 1 over 5 over 2 take away 1. 1 take away 1 is 0. 5 halves, 2.5, depending on how you want to look at it, take away 1. Well, 2.5 take away a whole will give me 1 over half, and 1 over half, 1.5 is 3 over 2. Now, I hope you've not got distracted. It's 0 divided by, it doesn't matter what we're dividing it by, it's 0 divided by it, so the answer will be 0. You have a gradient of 0. I've deliberately thrown this one in to see if you're on the ball. What does that mean about the line that you have? It's telling you it's either horizontal or it's vertical. If you have a gradient of 0, it means it goes straight across. It is a horizontal line, and all horizontal lines have an equation y equals, and then the y coordinate. Notice the y coordinate was 1 both times. Y equals 1. Remember what I said in the last video, you always have to be on your guard for horizontal or vertical lines, because you don't have to go through all the same steps that you have to do for the other questions. Question 2. Okay, we want the median which passes through DE. If it passes through DE, it must be coming from F. I need that point in the middle. So first and foremost, midpoint of DE. Add together the two x coordinates and half it. Add together the two y coordinates and half it. That's going to give me minus 1 add 3 is 2, 2 divided by 2 is 1, 5 add 9 is 14, divided by 2 is 7. So it gives me a midpoint of 1, 7. I'm using the midpoint and point F for my gradient. So that's going to be 7 take away negative 3, 1 take away 12. That will give me 7 take away negative 3, 7 add 3, which is 10. 1 take away 12 is minus 11. Horrible looking fraction, but that's fine. Point, choose either point, the midpoint or F. I'm going to go with a midpoint of 1, 7 because they're both positive. A and B. Equation. Equation formula as standard. Fill in your information. Y minus 7 will equal. Now, the gradient was 10 over negative 11. If you have one negative symbol, it doesn't really belong to either the top or the bottom. It can just go in at the start. Okay, you can leave it as 10 over minus 11 if you want. It just means you have a negative fraction. I'm now going to multiply through by 11. Now, if you kept it as negative 11 on the bottom and you've multiplied through by negative 11, you should still end up with the same answer that I have. So times this through by 11. I'm going to get 11y take away 77 will equal minus 10 bracket x take away 1. I'll multiply it in my bracket. Be careful with your negatives. 9 is 10 times minus 1 is positive 10, and then I'll take 77, I'll add 77 to both sides, and I get a final answer of 11y equals minus 10x and 87. I'll just come up, I'll show you what would happen if you kept it as minus 11 on the bottom. Okay, you would multiply through by minus 11. To get that. Need to be careful. Minus 11 you're multiplying both these things by, so that will change to a positive. Times out the bracket. And then I'm going to take 77 away from both sides. Now, it's not the exact same as what we have down here. That's just because we've moved everything to the other side. So everything's change symbol. It's effectively the same thing. Both answers are correct. Right. Long question. I want the medians, all three medians. So we'll start with the median from A. Okay, median from A. So I want the midpoint of the opposite side. So that's BC. So I'll add together the two x coordinates and half it. Minus 1 adds 7, half. I'll add together the two y coordinates and half it. That's going to give me 6 over 2, which is 3. That's going to give me 14 over 2, which is 7. So I've got the midpoint. I'm using that. I'm using point A. And I'm going to get my gradient. So that's going to be 7 take away 5. 3 take away 3. Which will give me 2 over 0. Again, checking if you're on your toes. What is 2 divided by 0? In terms of a gradient, it is undefined. So that tells me that I have a special case. A point, I can use either point. I'll go with 3, 7. My equation, I have an undefined gradient, which means I have a vertical line, and vertical lines have equations. X equal the x coordinate. X equals 3. Always be on your guard for horizontal or vertical lines. Right, next one. I'll do the median from B. Okay, so this time I want the midpoint of the opposite side. So I've got A, B and C. If the median's coming from B, the opposite side is AC. So midpoint of AC. So I'm adding together the x coordinates and halving it. So that's going to be 3 add 7. I'm adding together the y coordinates and halving. That's 5 add 11. That's going to give me 10 over 2, which is 5. 16 over 2, which is 8. So I've got my midpoint, and I'm also going to use point B as the other point for my gradient. So for my gradient, I'll put B down here so you can see it. So that's going to give me 3 take away 8, minus 1 take away 5, 3 take away 8 is minus 5, minus 1 take away 5 will give me minus 6, negatives will cancel, my gradient is 5/6. My point, I can use either point, I'm going with the ones that's both positive, 5, 8. My equation, that's going to be y minus b equals m bracket x minus a. That's going to be y take away 8 equals 5/6 x minus 5. I'm going to multiply through by 6 to remove the fraction. Times by 6, times by 6, times by 6. The 6's would cancel, leaving the 5. Multiply out my bracket. 6y minus 48 is going to equal 5x take away 25. Add 48 to both sides. 6y will equal 5x plus 23. So the median from B is 6y equals 5x plus 23. Last one is the median from C. Okay. So if it's the median from C, it goes to the midpoint of the opposite side, which is AB. So the midpoint of AB, I'll remind you, A was the point 35, B was the point minus 13, C was the point 711. So the midpoint of AB, add together the x coordinates and half it, add together the y coordinates and half it. That's going to give me 3 add minus 1 is 2, 2 divided by 2 is 1, 5 add 3 is 8, divided by 2 is 4, so the midpoint is 1, 4. That is the median from C, so I'm also using point C. So I'm going to get my gradient. 11 take away 4, 7 take away 1, that's going to give me 7/6. Point, I can use either point, I'll go with 1, 4, AB, and then I'm going to go to my equation, and I wonder how many of you are waiting for this for a full house, all correct. That's going to give me y minus 4 equals 7/6, x take away 1. I'm going to multiply through by the 6 to remove the fraction. 6y take away 24 will equal, the 6's will cancel, giving me the 7 on the top. I'm going to multiply out my bracket. I'm going to add 24 to both sides, giving me a final answer for the median from C. 6y equals 7x, add 17. And there you go, people. That is how you do the median of a triangle. Remember, your steps are as follows. Midpoint of opposite side, use that point and the point that's been given to you to get the gradient. Either one goes as your point, and then you go into your equation. Okay, see you next time.